Rowan wakes from a terrifying nightmare. Lasher, in his old form, appears in her home and takes her newborn son. She fights to protect him, but before she can do anything, the vision fades. In only a few days, baby Lasher has grown at an unnatural rate, transforming from a newborn to a toddler. Rowan is deeply unsettled, and her paranoia intensifies when she hallucinates Millie, who warns her to kill the child before it's too late. The toddler Lasher begins to recall memories from his past life and asks Rowan for the powers he once possessed. When she uses her abilities to examine his body, everything appears normal, except for his rapid growth. Desperate for answers, she turns to Dolly and asks what the prophecy says about Lasher's return. Dolly recalls that her grandmother once told her Lasher's birth would multiply the Mayfair family's power. She suggests seeking guidance from Cortland, but Cortland is now stone, unable to offer any help. Moira Mayfair, Tessa's grieving sister, returns to town. A powerful mind reader, Moira is determined to understand why Lasher didn't save Tessa as he did with other Mayfair witches. Rowan, with no other options, dives into Catherine's diaries, hoping to uncover Lasher's true motives. At the same time, Cyprian attempts to break into the Mayfair house, but is thwarted by Rowan's magical barriers. Frustrated and anticipating trouble, he records everything he knows about the Mayfairs in his Bible, instructing his future self to trust only the person who hands it back to him if his memory is erased. He leaves the Bible with Arjuna for safekeeping. His fears are soon validated. Cyprian is captured by Albrecht, who reveals that the Talamasca sees Lasher as a supernatural threat. They plan to capture him and want Cyprian's help in recruiting Moira, believing her vendetta against Lasher will make her an ally. Since only a Mayfair can bypass the magical barrier Rowan placed around the house, Moira is their best option. As Lasher continues to age, Rowan's fear grows. She contemplates killing him but ultimately chooses a different approach, pretending to be on his side to earn his trust. However, Lasher remains cautious, as Dolly has warned him to be careful about what he reveals. A minor struggle occurs between them, and Rowan accidentally injures Lasher. She collects a sample of his blood and takes it to the hospital, calling an old friend, geneticist Sam Larkin, to conduct off-the-record tests. She is convinced something is deeply unnatural about Lasher's DNA. While at the hospital, Rowan encounters a grieving mother and impulsively uses her powers to heal the woman's dying daughter. The act leaves her drained, and Jojo finds her slumped in a chair. Jojo reminds her that the offer to be a brain surgeon at the Mayfair hospital still stands. Rowan acknowledges this before insisting they return to the Mayfair house to discuss Cortland. When they arrive, they find Moira attempting to communicate with Lasher. Luckily, Dolly has loud music playing, preventing Moira from reading her thoughts. Rowan apologizes for her role in Tessa's death, explaining that the Lasher upstairs is not the same being Moira is after. He doesn't even remember his past. Though Moira eventually leaves, she is determined to return. After Moira's departure, Lasher, now a teenager, asks Rowan about Tessa. She avoids the gruesome details and tries to convince him that maybe he came back so she can use his power for good. But Lasher disagrees. Shockingly, he tries to kiss Rowan, confessing his love for her. Rowan pulls away, warning him never to do that again. Seeking clarity, she descends into the basement and attempts to communicate with Cortland's stone form. Though Cortland can hear her, he remains trapped in a supernatural limbo, unable to respond. Furious and confused, teenage Lasher sneaks out to a nightclub, where he is drawn to a mysterious girl. However, the night takes a tragic turn when she suddenly hemorrhages and dies. Panicked, he carries her lifeless body back home, begging Rowan to bring her back. But even with her powers, Rowan cannot resurrect the dead. Thinking quickly, she tricks Lasher into fetching a pair of scissors and locks him in the basement while she processes what she has done. After calming down, Rowan uses her abilities to dispose of the girl's body, pushing it into the river. Lasher escapes through the basement window. By the time he emerges, he is transformed again, now a full-grown man. Before leaving, he notices the dead girl's bag and finds her ID. The girl was a Mayfair witch. Gifford Mayfair shuffles her tarot cards while on the phone with a family member. The reading is ominous. Dark forces are moving and danger is imminent. She warns the person on the other end, but he dismisses her concerns. Frustrated, she hangs up, needing space to process what the cards are telling her. At the Mayfair house, Rowan goes to check on Lasher in the basement, but finds it empty. He's gone. Before she can process his disappearance, Sam Larkin calls with an update on the DNA results. His analysis hit an error. According to the test, the sample isn't human. Intrigued, Sam is eager to dig deeper, but Rowan warns him to stop treating it like a scientific puzzle. This isn't something he should be trying to solve. Lasher arrives at Gifford's house. Despite knowing something is off, she lets him in, drawn to the familiarity of his presence. They talk, tension growing between them, until it turns into something physical. She falls asleep afterward. Lasher helps himself to some milk from her fridge. Suddenly, Gifford gasps for air, crying out in pain, and before he can do anything, she dies in his arms. Cortland remains trapped in his stone form, experiencing a nightmare. In his vision, he serves food to his father, who gorges himself while hurling insults at him. When the plates are empty, his father demands more, forcing Cortland to cut off his own hand to satisfy him. In the real world, Rowan takes Jojo to see Cortland's statue, hoping he might hold answers about Lasher. Jojo, however, warns her against freeing him, calling their father a master manipulator. She urges Rowan to find another way. Before they can discuss further, they receive devastating news. Gifford is dead. Rowan and Jojo rush to Gifford's house. Among the chaos, Rowan spots an empty milk bottle discarded in a corner. Realization hits. Lasher was here. He killed Gifford. Following his scent, she tracks him deep into the woods. Lasher hides, only speaking once she closes her eyes. He insists he never meant to kill the Mayfair women, but admits that he is attracted to their smell, and whenever he gets close to them, something happens. He can't control it. Rowan tries to manipulate him into coming with her, but Lasher sees through her act. He accuses her of wanting to control him. The argument escalates, and when he tries to run, Rowan unleashes her powers to stop him. But Lasher escapes and disappears into the night. Cyprian visits Arjuna to pick up a trust fob. She warns him against using it on Moira, but he insists there's no time to be cautious. As they talk, Arjuna reveals troubling memory gaps. Cyprian suspects Albrecht wiped her mind. Memories stolen, with no way to recover them. Though he distrusts Albrecht, he is forced to focus on the mission at hand. Rowan returns home and immerses herself in the family's history. Millie's ghost appears, accusing her of letting Lasher live. Rowan argues that she tried to kill him, but Millie calls her out. If she really wanted him dead, he'd be dead. Millie suggests Rowan is keeping Lasher alive to hold on to the powers he gave her. Rowan refuses to engage, more determined than ever to track him down and stop his killing spree. Moira struggles to reconnect with her estranged mother, Alicia. Seeking a distraction, she meets up with childhood friends at a local pub. That night, Cyprian approaches her, allowing her to read his mind to prove he isn't hiding anything. She picks up on his lingering feelings for Rowan and tells him he's wasting his time. Rowan doesn't want to be saved. Back at the Mayfair house, Rowan performs a ritual to summon a storm, hoping to mask the scent of the Mayfair women from Lasher. Her efforts are interrupted when Lark unexpectedly shows up, handing her the DNA results in person. Surprised he didn't just email them, she steps outside to walk him back to his hotel, discussing his findings. The storm fades, undone by his interruption. With the skies clearing, Lasher picks up a familiar scent. He follows it to Alicia Mayfair's home, where she welcomes him like an old friend. Nostalgia takes over. She remembers when he used to visit Deirdre in their house. Hours later, Moira returns home to find her mother dead on the sofa. She frantically calls Cyprian for help. Lark reveals his latest discovery, 4 entirely distinct chromosomes. He presses Rowan for more details about her patient, but before she can respond, Jojo calls with devastating news. Alicia is dead. Rowan doesn't hesitate. Lasher is hunting the Mayfair women. She has to act. At Alicia's house, Cyprian uses his powers to witness her final moments. He watches as Lasher seduces her, sees the horror as her body betrays her. With no more time to waste, Rowan releases Cortland from his stone prison. She demands to know what Lasher wants and where he might go, but to her frustration, he knows nothing. Disgusted, she calls out his hypocrisy. He committed terrible acts in Lasher's name, yet he has no real understanding of him. Cortland tries to justify himself, blaming his father's cruelty for shaping him into the man he became. Rowan isn't interested in his excuses. She orders him to gather the Mayfair family, throw a party, something that will bring them all together. Hopefully they would confide in him. She makes one thing clear. Cortland works for her now. Lasher wanders the streets at night, lost in his own mind, when he crosses paths with Felix, a familiar face from Interview with the Vampire and one of Lestat's students. With his memories still fragmented, Lasher doesn't recognize Felix as a vampire, but their conversation takes an intriguing turn. Felix reminds Lasher of his true nature, urging him to embrace his instincts and rule without hesitation. At the Mayfair estate, Cortland is busy making calls to ensure the entire family attends Rowan's event. The excitement around Lasher's return is palpable. Many see him as a long-awaited savior. But Rowan is furious at Cortland's deception, knowing that if the family learns about Lasher's deadly rampage, they will blame her. Even Millie's ghost warns Rowan that the truth would turn the family against her. However, Millie also doubts whether Rowan has the strength to do what must be done, kill Lasher. At Moira's house, paramedics remove Alicia's body while Albrecht and Cyprian assess the situation. Cyprian reveals that Lasher didn't force Alicia into intimacy, nor did he try to save her from death. Albrecht finds this odd and begins investigating similar deaths in the morgues. Moira informs them of Rowan's upcoming party, which she claims is meant to protect the family from a curse. Albrecht encourages her to attend. Rowan enlists Dolly Jean's help in making a protection spell, though her true motive is to lure Lasher to the event, as he would follow their scent there. She intends to trap him in a thrall, a supernatural state that feels like being locked in an endless dream. Dolly disapproves, but agrees to assist. Cortland asks to go home and change, but Rowan refuses, forcing him to wear his father's clothes instead. While Rowan and Dolly prepare, Cortland attempts to contact Albrecht, but Albrecht has already written him off. Instead, Albrecht shifts focus to Cyprian, tasking him with kidnapping Lasher without disclosing why. This infuriates Cyprian, as this is his case, yet the organization continues to keep him in the dark. Despite his anger, he agrees to go along with the mission. As the party kicks off, Rowan notices her magical powers are fading. Jojo and Daphne arrive first, and Jojo is immediately furious upon learning that Cortland is free. She warns Rowan that he cannot be trusted. Rowan bonds with Daphne by opening up about the loss of her own mother, gaining the young girl's trust. As more guests arrive, Daphne grows anxious about her future, fearing she will be sent to live with strangers now that her mother is gone. Rowan checks the guest list and realizes 3 women are missing, including Evelyn Mayfair. She asks Dolly to call Evelyn, but Dolly explains that Evelyn won't come because of her feud with Cortland. To avoid further conflict, Rowan sends her cousin Alonzo to fetch Evelyn. Amid the chaos, Rowan receives a call from Lark, who wants to meet before he leaves town. However, she is too consumed with family matters to go. Ben, Lucy's father, unknowingly torments Rowan with his presence. He is still searching for his missing daughter, unaware that Lasher killed her and that Rowan disposed of the body. The Mayfair family grows restless, eager to meet Lasher. When they corner Rowan with questions about his whereabouts, Moira informs them that he is nowhere in the house. Someone voices suspicion that Lasher might be responsible for the recent killings, but Cortland quickly dismisses the accusation, claiming Lasher is their protector, and that the Mayfair Witches are dying because Lasher has been absent. To maintain control of the situation, Rowan plays along, later pulling Moira aside to reveal the truth. Lasher is the killer. Rowan confesses her plan to lure and kill Lasher, but Moira refuses to believe her. As Lasher's mother and witch, she insists that Rowan cannot truly intend to destroy him. To prove her sincerity, Rowan allows Moira to read her mind. However, Rowan's power is too overwhelming, preventing Moira from accessing her thoughts. Rowan pleads for trust, but Moira instead chooses to align with Cyprian and the Talamasca, who are stationed nearby, waiting for their opportunity to seize Lasher. Lasher follows Evelyn's scent to a local bar, where she works. He orders a glass of milk, but their encounter quickly turns hostile when he makes an aggressive advance. Evelyn slaps him in response, and later that night, when the bar is closing, Lasher loses control and attacks her. She stabbed him in self-defense, and her son defended her. Alonzo calls Rowan, informing her that Lasher tried to harm Evelyn and is now headed her way. Realizing the time for deception is over, Rowan comes clean to the Mayfairs about Lasher's killings. She apologizes, especially to Ben, who is still searching for Lucy. She also gives the family the protection spell. Daphne tries to flee, but Jojo attempts to stop her. In the chaos, Rowan accidentally places both women in a thrall. At that moment, she senses Lasher is here. Rowan rushes outside and finds Lasher limping toward her, wounded and vulnerable. Her initial resolve wavers as he calls out to her. Pleading, Rowan hesitates, torn between her plan and her emotions. Before Rowan can act, Cyprian suddenly appears. Rowan shields Lasher from Cyprian's attack, causing her to collapse. As she drifts in and out of consciousness, she watches helplessly as the Talamasca takes Lasher away. Her final blurred vision is of Cyprian speaking to Moira. Moira's face is filled with disappointment. Rowan has failed. Rowan dreams of a bittersweet moment with Lark, back when they were in med school. They were on a boat when Lark told her he had accepted a job in New York, one he never mentioned applying for. Realizing he wasn't cut out to be a surgeon, Lark's decision shattered their relationship, leaving Rowan to continue her path alone. Moira wakes Rowan, pulling her back into the present chaos. Jojo and Daphne are still trapped in the thrall, and without Lasher, Rowan's powers are too weak to pull them free. She realizes she needs Lasher nearby for her magic to work properly. Lark calls Rowan, concerned about the cryptic messages she sent the night before. They were supposed to meet before he left town. Rowan, distracted, instructs Moira to contact Cyprian and have him bring Lasher close enough to the house so she can break the thrall. Cyprian, however, discovers a major problem. Lasher is missing. When he checks the supernatural prison where Lasher was supposed to be held, he finds that Albrecht never brought him in. Following Albrecht's last known location, Cyprian finds their abandoned vehicle. Using his powers, he uncovers the truth. Albrecht has gone rogue and taken Lasher somewhere else. Once again, Cyprian realizes he's been played, and his frustration grows. Rowan meets with Lark. Their conversation is nostalgic, yet laced with tension. Lark notices Rowan's behavior and asks what's going on. She vaguely explains that there have been deaths in her family, but she can't discuss the details. When Lark inquires about a mysterious blood sample, Rowan deflects. As she leaves, Lark discreetly takes the cup she drank from, containing her DNA. He then makes a call, requesting lab access. Whatever he suspects, he's determined to find answers. Back at the mansion, Moira receives a call from a family member, Ryan. The Mayfair Witches no longer trust Rowan and plan to appoint an interim designee to protect themselves. Suddenly, the house begins to crumble. Moira frantically calls Rowan, who rushes back home to find the mansion in a state of disrepair. The witches believe the decay is connected to Lasher's absence. Desperate for answers, Rowan and Moira seek out Cortland, hoping he knows where Lasher is. Using her mind-reading abilities, Moira discovers that Cortland had been working with Albrecht because of his father, Julien. However, Cortland himself is in the dark about Lasher's true intentions. As Cortland attempts to block Moira from his thoughts by turning on music, they notice something strange. Julien's antique Victrola is missing. They realize Dolly Jean took it the night before. At the Talamasca, Cyprien searches Albrecht's office and finds a cryptic message left behind, a bottle of wine labeled for him. Using his powers, he learns that Albrecht intended to betray the organization, though his reasons remain unclear. In the fireplace, Cyprien finds a half-burnt piece of paper, but before he can investigate further, a new agent, Polina, arrives. She immediately questions him, suspecting he was in league with Albrecht. Without hesitation, she orders Cyprien to be taken to Amsterdam to face the Talamasca elders, certain that, whether he remembers it or not, he has answers they need. Rowan and Moira track down Dolly Jean, but she is deep in a trance. Evelyn stops them from pulling her out, explaining that Julien bound himself to the antique Victrola before his death, allowing him to exist between life and the afterlife. Dolly Jean and Evelyn, who were both romantically involved with Julien, take turns communicating with him through the Victrola. When Dolly Jean's time runs out, Evelyn shifts into her true form, an older woman, revealing she has the ability to shapeshift. She then pulls Dolly Jean back to reality. Rowan presses Dolly Jean for information about Lasher, and she reveals that Julien might have the answers. However, Julien insists he knows nothing about Lasher's fate now that Albrecht has taken him. Rowan and Moira don't believe him, deciding to enter the antique Victrola to speak with Julien herself. Dolly Jean warns her. She can only enter if Julien allows it, and once inside, he will have all the power. Rowan, convinced he will let her in, ignores the warnings. As they argue, Moira rushes to take the Victrola and falls into a trance. She begins screaming in terror, chanting words including Taltos. Against the sisters' warnings, Rowan pulls her out. Without Lasher, Rowan is unable to heal Moira, and they rush her to the hospital. After regaining consciousness, Moira and Rowan share a rare moment of understanding, bonding over their shared Mayfair trauma. Moira finally grasps Rowan's struggles and offers to be her rope, a necessary safeguard to ensure Rowan doesn't get trapped in the afterlife when she enters the Victrola. Cortland joins them as they return to Dolly Jean's house to carry out the plan. Lark receives the results of his lab test and is stunned by the revelation. Rowan and the mysterious blood sample she gave him are connected. Rowan prepares for her journey. Using her own blood, she activates the antique Victrola and steps into the unknown. Rowan enters the afterlife, where an hourglass counts down her remaining time. She finds Julien, looking haggard with a bushy beard, slumped in a chair. When she tries to wake him, he remains unresponsive, forcing her to check for a pulse. But just as she does, Julien suddenly grips her wrist and mutters, "Cold." Rowan tosses a log into the fire and demands answers. Where did Albrecht take Lasher? Julien feigns sleep again, forcing Rowan to fall silent and survey her surroundings instead. Realizing she's getting nowhere, Rowan calls out to Moira to throw her the rope. Moira recites a spell, and Rowan wakes up, frustrated that Julien gave her nothing useful. But then in the Victrola, Julien materializes beside her, now in his prime. He delivers a chilling revelation. Rowan has split herself into two halves, one ruled by intellect, the other by emotion. Because she didn't ask permission to leave the Victrola, only half of her returned. Worse still, she only has 40 minutes to reunite both halves, or she dies. As Heart Rowan, the emotional half, scrambles for answers, she describes Julien's lair as a Scottish pub. Cortland recognizes it as Donalaith, Scotland, the ancestral Mayfair homeland. But there's a problem. Cortland has no memory of ever being there, despite Moira's mind reading confirming that he traveled there as a child. Then, it clicks. Albrecht must have erased his memories, possibly at Julien's request. Dolly Jean offers another possibility. Julien could have done it himself using an elixir. Seeking answers, Cortland searches through old family spellbooks while Rowan tries to follow. She suddenly feels lightheaded, and Dolly advises her to sit. Moira tells Rowan her grandmother had early onset dementia, and Alicia used to force Moira to read her mind to sift through lost memories. The process was easier because her grandmother was on various dementia drugs. This gives Rowan an idea. Deirdre's old medication is still in the house. Moira fetches the pills while Hart Rowan stands before the Victrola, unaware that Head Rowan is calling out to her from inside, begging for a rope. As they give Cortland the Alzheimer's medication, Lark arrives at the Mayfair mansion. Julian magically blows the door open. Lark is shocked. As Hart Rowan heads downstairs, the others urge her to send him away, holding Rowan's DNA results. He confesses that he tested the sample from her coffee cup and found something shocking. She possesses 4 extra chromosomes, identical to those in Lasher's blood. He demands to know what she is. Instead of answering, Rowan devises a drastic solution. She tells Dolly Jean to prepare Julian's memory-wiping elixir. She decides Lark must forget everything. Hart Rowan returns to Lark with a cup of whiskey to stall till the elixir is ready. Lark apologizes for violating her privacy and demanding answers. She accepts his apology, knowing that his memories will be erased anyway. She decides to tell him the truth. She's a witch. She explains that her uncanny ability to guess injuries correctly back in university wasn't just intuition, but a manifestation of her powers. Head Rowan is horrified. How could she reveal something like that? She desperately tries to reach into the house model, pleading for Hart Rowan to throw her a rope. But nothing works. Rowan then scans Lark's body, rattling off past injuries. He confirms everything she says. The effort, however, drains her. She admits that she's weaker without Lasher nearby. Lark, still processing everything, asks who Lasher is. Inside the Victrola, Head Rowan shifts tactics. She mocks Julian, suggesting that Albrecht took him to Donalaith for a romantic getaway. Amused, Julian reveals that Donalaith is no ordinary place. It is a land infused with ancient stronghold blessed by pagan spirits. Rowan learns that her great-grandmother Marguerite took Julian there, teaching him magic and the ways of the old deities, the Taltos, the very beings Moira screamed about last episode. And Julian ripped the pages on the Taltos from Marguerite's journal, ensuring only Albrecht knew their full history. As Moira probes deeper into Cortland's erased memories, he recalls his childhood trip to Scotland. There, he met Ian, his Scottish half-brother, a cold and terrifying figure. Ian brutally slaughtered animals and even murdered a girl, all as part of a ritualistic bet to honor the old gods. Julian had a whole other family in Scotland. Cortland realizes he blocked out these memories for a reason. Head Rowan pieces together that Julian never truly cared for the New Orleans Mayfairs. His focus was always on his Scottish lineage. She concludes that Albrecht is taking Lasher to Ian's family in Kilbride. Hart, Rowan, and Lark formulate a plan. If Lark can amplify Lasher's DNA, Rowan might be able to break the thrall without Lasher's presence. They head to the basement, where Rowan hands him a tin of Lasher's baby teeth. Lark scrapes out the pulp for a DNA sample, but accidentally cuts his hand. Rowan tries to heal him, but the power isn't strong enough. Dolly Jean warns Rowan about the memory-wiping elixir. It won't just erase today's events. It will erase Lark's entire memory of Rowan. When she finally brings him the drink and he's about to take a sip, she suddenly knocks it out of his hand and urges him to leave. As the final grains of sand fall, Hart Rowan collapses. She clutches her chest, realizing she is incomplete. The others panic. Julian must have done something. Hart Rowan staggers toward the Victrola, understanding that she must be her own rope. She embraces herself and recites the Latin spell. Just before Head Rowan leaves, Julian gives her a glass of wine from a family vineyard. The label reads Kilbride, Scotland. That's where Lasher is. Reunited at last, Rowan turns to the others. "We're going to Kilbride," she declares. She asks Lark if he'll join them. He agrees. In Kilbride, Albrecht delivers Lasher to his ancestral home. He is confused, his memories fragmented. Ian welcomes him with a sinister promise. He will help Lasher reach his full potential. But as soon as Albrecht demands details about the upcoming ceremony, Ian betrays him, slitting his throat and shoving his body down the stairs. Albrecht's usefulness has ended. Rowan, Lark, Moira, and Cortland set sail for Scotland in pursuit of Lasher. As they travel, Moira questions Julian's decision to bring Lasher to the Mayfairs in Kilbride. Wouldn't he be a danger to their family as well? But Cortland dismisses her concerns, saying that a few deaths never stopped their father. Mid-journey, Moira receives a troubling text from Dolly Jean. Every window in the Mayfair house has shattered, and birds have swarmed inside. Cortland fears that if the house collapses, they'll lose Jojo and Daphne forever, but Rowan reassures them. Once she finds Lasher and takes a vial of his blood, she can break the thrall. At the Mayfair estate in Kilbride, Lasher, weak and disoriented, fends off Ian's sons, Abel and Ennis. Abel calls him Saint Ashlar, and insists that Lasher has returned as the last of the Taltos. When Lasher demands to see Rowan, Abel tells him he doesn't need her. His true mate has been waiting for 500 years. Bound in restraints, Lasher is taken to meet Emilith, a fellow Taltos. Upon seeing her, Lasher reacts instinctively, lunging forward as if drawn by a primal urge. Abel explains that their union will bring prosperity to Kilbride for generations. Emilith milks the cow and offers the milk to Lasher, which he drinks greedily. Rowan, Lark, Moira, and Cortland arrive in Kilbride, only for their rental car to get a flat tire. With no signal, they decide to walk the remaining miles to town. They find Kilbride in the midst of a festival, which Lark learns is Michaelmas, a traditional Catholic feast honoring Archangel Michael. But Rowan points out that the celebration feels more pagan than Catholic. Lark then reveals that the Mayfairs fund the event every year, making it unique to this village. As Rowan scans the crowd, she spots what she believes to be Albrecht and chases after him, but he vanishes. Meanwhile, Moira follows a mysterious figure in a crimson cloak after hearing the eerie words, "The Taltos will end your suffering." She reads his mind and follows him into a pub that eerily resembles Julian's Victrola. In Amsterdam, Cyprian and Polina arrive at the Talamasca headquarters, where Annemieke, a high-ranking member, informs Cyprian that he's been cleared of all charges. However, she needs his help. Albrecht has vanished, and they need Cyprian's abilities to track him down. Cyprian refuses, revealing that the Talamasca has always treated him as a tool rather than a valued member. However, he makes a counteroffer. He'll help, but only if she makes him head of the New Orleans office. Annemieke hesitates, admitting that the decision isn't hers alone. Back in Kilbride, Rowan and the others discover that their hotel reservation has mysteriously disappeared. The receptionist offers to arrange a ride to another inn outside of town. Soon, a driver named Hamish arrives, but Rowan and Lark hesitate, wary of leaving Moira behind. As they search for Moira, they find Cortland drinking in the pub. Eventually, they agree to take Hamish's ride. However, instead of a hotel, they're taken to a large estate, where Ian, Cortland's long-lost brother, greets them warmly. It's clear now, this was a setup. Ian embraces Cortland, reminiscing about their father, Julian. He claims Julian manipulated them both, feeding them lies about the great work to keep them apart. Ian offers them dinner, and an invitation to an upcoming wedding. Rowan meets Bonnie, Ian's daughter, who was dressed as Saint Ashlar's bride during the festival. When Bonnie shows her a picture of the saint, Rowan realizes with horror, it's Lasher. Bonnie is excited to meet Ashlar, explaining that he is Kilbride's patron saint, their protector against Satan. Ian confirms the village's belief in Saint Ashlar, explaining that the Taltos once thrived, their life force unmatched, until humans wiped them out. Now, only Lasher and Emilith remain. When Rowan demands to see Lasher, Ian refuses, accusing her of coming to Kilbride out of greed. Furious, she uses her biomagic against him, only for Bonnie to scream in pain. Ian reveals they are all connected. If Rowan harms him, she hurts Bonnie. Ian urges her to embrace this joyous occasion, instead of fighting it. Determined to find Lasher, Rowan seeks out Hamish, Ian's son. She senses he might be her best shot at uncovering the truth. They bond over their shared status as black sheep, and Rowan offers to help him escape Kilbride in exchange for information. Hamish cryptically suggests she check the tunnels beneath the house. Cortland learns that Ian has a Victrola, further hinting at Julian's influence. Ian then offers to drive Cortland back to the rental car, which might give him a chance to gather intel. Lark, trying to gather information, finds himself in a disturbing encounter with Ian's other daughter, Rose. She openly propositions him, but before he can escape, he spots something horrifying, a mask made of human skin. Realizing with horror that it's Albrecht's actual face, Lark understands the truth. Whoever Rowan saw earlier wasn't Albrecht. It was someone wearing his face. Panicked, Lark tells Rowan they need to leave. Ian's family is dangerous, and this is a trap. But Rowan refuses. She insists she can handle them. They argue, then give in to their emotions and sleep together. As Rowan sneaks out, Lasher struggles with his fate. Abel explains that Taltos are driven by an overwhelming urge to create life, but Lasher, consumed by guilt over the deaths he's caused, insists he can't go through with the wedding. He fears he'll hurt Emilith. Abel decides to show him something that may change his mind. Rowan follows Hamish's tip and sneaks into the tunnels beneath the house. But suddenly she hears the door closing as Hamish locks her in. Lark is deep in sleep as Rose Mayfair sits atop him, performing a mysterious ritual. Two women stand behind her, one lighting a candle while the other hands rows a hook with a thread, an ominous sign. Rowan wanders through the tunnels beneath the Mayfair house, searching for answers. Ian drives Cortland to a rental car, discussing the Mayfair family calendar. The first event? Michaelmas. The second? The wedding between Lasher, now known as Ashlar, and Emilith. The third? A high noon feast. Cortland asks what that would do for Ian. Ian then demonstrates his telekinetic abilities, revealing that their powers will increase dramatically once Lasher and Emilith are joined. Lasher is shown a small church by Abel, who explains that Lasher was once a beloved priest there. Lasher also discovers that his blood has miraculous properties. Just a drop makes a tree instantly grow. Abel finally admits that his task is to ensure Lasher attends his own wedding, warning that Ian is a violent man who won't tolerate failure. He reveals that Lasher and Emileth's union is meant to restore the Scottish Mayfair's magic to its full power. Back in the tunnels, Rowan's phone dies, but she uses her magic to conjure fire in her palm. She knows that for her power to work, Lasher must be nearby. She follows the path where the fire burns stronger to guide her direction. But when she reaches a door and yanks it open, expecting to find Lasher, but instead, she comes face to face with Amintha and Bonnie. Bonnie hands her a vial of Lasher's blood, insisting that Rowan now has what she came for and should leave. However, Rowan refuses, demanding to see Moira first. Moira, meanwhile, is being held in a dimly lit room, bored, while Fiona Mayfair plays with a knife. When Rowan arrives, the two embrace. Moira reveals that Lasher was fine until yesterday, and that the Scottish Mayfairs, specifically Ian, killed Albrecht. She also has a bad feeling about the wedding. When Rowan tells Moira she rejected the vial of Lasher's blood, Moira is shocked. Jojo and Daphne are still trapped in the thrall, and they need that blood to free them. But Rowan is fixated on uncovering Julian's plan. Rowan then threatens Amintha with her powers, demanding to know where Lasher is. Amintha relents. In Amsterdam, Cyprien, Cip, has spent the night reading Daniel Malloy's book, Interview with the Vampire Reference. He strategizes with Polina, arguing that the Talamasca should discredit the book as fiction. Anamiki praises his insight, revealing that she upheld her end of the bargain. He's now the new head of the New Orleans division. Now it's time for Cip to do his part. She shows him the preserved body of a Teltos, believed to have died around 1550. When Cip sees the body, he recognizes it as Lasher. This confirms their long-held theory that the Teltos can be reborn. Back in Scotland, Rowan finally reunites with Lasher. He now remembers everything, including his purpose, to marry Emileth and procreate. Rowan refuses to accept this, and insists they must leave together. Lasher tells Rowan about his past, as Cip also puts his hand on the 1500 Lasher's body to know his story. Lasher was born centuries ago to a queen who had yet to bear the king a son. However, she secretly gave birth to Lasher, instructing her ladies to tell the king the baby was stillborn. In truth, the queen had an affair, and Lasher's biological father, the Laird, took him in. Lasher grew rapidly, much like we saw earlier in the season, and the Laird taught him about their people. But when the king discovered the truth, he burned their village to the ground in revenge. His father summons a wolf that bites Lasher, and when his blood drips onto the ground, he discovers his powers. As Lasher grew older, he became a priest, and that's when he first saw Emileth. In the present, Lasher calls Rowan out for keeping him close, only because of his power. He accuses her of loving what he can give her, not who he is. Still, he wants her at his wedding. If she truly cares, she should be there to give him away. From seeing his past, Cip informs Anamiki and Polina that the Taltos have healing abilities, meaning Lasher is actually a force for good. Anamiki reveals that Lasher's body was found in a peat bog in Kilbride, Scotland, an important site in Albrecht's plan. Rowan calls Cortland, telling him they're staying for the wedding. But she also orders him to investigate Ian, convinced he's hiding something big. Cortland then seeks out Ian, who is drunk and angry. Ian reveals that Julian wants to become corporeal again by taking Hamish's body. If that happens, Hamish's spirit will be trapped inside the Victrola, a fate Ian can't bear. Cortland promises to help. They enter the Victrola together, with Hamish acting as their tether. However, Ian betrays Cortland, offering up his body instead. Julian accepts the deal as Cortland is immortal, and Hamish pulls Ian and Julian out, leaving Cortland stranded inside. The next morning, Lark wakes up after Rose's strange ritual. But he can't reach Rowan. Then, he's told he's staying for the ceremony, and is given a formal outfit to wear. Amintha brings Rowan a dress, catching her mid-prayer. Rowan reflects on what Lasher said about her selfishness. Julian, now in Cortland's body, helps Ian prepare for the wedding. Ian wonders if they should kill Rowan, but Julian advises patience. If they upset Lasher, he might refuse to go through with the wedding, or what comes after. At the outdoor ceremony, Rowan arrives and takes a seat beside Cortland, now Julian. She questions him about Julian's intentions, but he doesn't know beyond Lasher's wedding. She also asks about Lark, and sure enough, she spots him, but Hamish prevents him from sitting with her. The ceremony begins. Dressed in traditional garb, Lasher and Emileth stand on opposite sides of the altar, bound by ropes. Father Callum officiates, and the ritual begins. Cip and Polina arrive in Scotland, standing before the Kilbride bog. Cip reveals that Lasher's body was brought here after his death. But how did he die? The bog doesn't know, but his body's last memory was of looking skyward in the woods. He lived a very short life. A constable interrupts them, accusing them of trespassing. Polina speaks Dutch while Sip pretends to be a clueless tourist, but the officer refuses to let them leave. Back at the ceremony, as the priest finishes his speech, Lasher and Emilith step onto the altar. Their wedding night begins. Rowan tries to intervene, but Ian stops her and slashes his palm, but it's Lark who feels the pain as a bruise appears on his skin, causing him to scream out. Rose's ritual wasn't meant to harm Lark. It was meant to bind him to the family. If Rowan tries to hurt Ian or the family, she'll be hurting Lark instead. The finale begins with Lasher and Emilith in bed, reflecting on their future. Now that he remembers who he is, Lasher is determined to create a better world, starting with their children. He believes that once the babies are born, they should leave this place, taking Rowan with them. Emilith, sensing his lingering connection to Rowan, asks him about her. Rowan and Julian, who is still posing as Cortland, wait outside Emilith's chambers, anticipating the rapid birth of the Taltos children. As Emilith begins to go into labor, Rowan suddenly starts losing consciousness. Julian has drugged her. Before she blacks out, her biological magic kicks in, revealing Cortland is Julian. Julian then meets with Ian, who is busy preparing for the upcoming harvest. Julian warns Ian to leave Rowan alone, arguing that she will be useful during the ritual. Her presence will amplify their power. Ian agrees and sends his son to retrieve Lasher for the ceremony. Polina is trapped in the underground prison cells with Cyprian. She sends a message to the Talamasca via ley lines. She and Cyprian start speaking in Dutch to confuse their Mayfair prison guard. Cyprian takes out the truth patch Arjuna gave him in episode 1 to use on Moira. He suggests Polina distract the guard while he slaps the patch on him. Before they can act, a group of men carries an unconscious Rowan into a nearby cell. Cyprian realizes the Mayfairs are keeping her far away from Lasher, which means something big is about to happen. Polina calls over the guard, buying Cyprian just enough time to place the truth patch on him. The patch works. The guard, now under its influence, releases them from their cell. When Sip revives Rowan, she assumes he's another threat. Polina reassures her, and Sip reveals his newfound understanding. Lasher is not inherently evil, he was corrupted. Sip no longer wants to kill him, he wants to protect him. For the first time in a while, he and Rowan are on the same side. Lasher is pulled away from Emilith's side for a mysterious ceremony in the woods. There, he finds Ian, Julian, and Ian's sons gathered around a ritual site. He's told that the ritual will strengthen his children, and seeing Cortland, Julian, he lowers his guard. But the ceremony is a betrayal. As they recite prayers, Ian comes up behind Lasher and slits his throat. His blood is drained into a bowl, as his body is left to die in the forest. Flowers bloom around him. Moira remains imprisoned, drinking and playing games with Fiona. She pretends to read Fiona's mind, using it as a distraction to slip a blade under her chin. Moira then shoves Fiona into a closet before escaping. She disguises herself as one of the Mayfair women assisting with the harvest and sneaks into the ceremony. To her horror, she realizes what's truly happening. The Mayfairs are planning to consume the blood of the Taltos children to strengthen their own power. Julian, now fully in control, anoints the children's foreheads with Lasher's blood, preparing them for the ritual. Rowan, Cyprian, and Polina find Lasher's body in the woods. Rowan panics. He's lost almost all his blood. But before it's too late, she miraculously revives him. As she does, she confesses her love for him, though it remains unclear whether it's maternal or romantic. Moira reunites with Rowan and informs her of Julian's plan. Determined to stop the ritual, Lasher, Rowan, and Moira storm the ceremony. Ian brings out Lark, reminding Rowan of the consequences if she dares to attack the Mayfairs, but Julian flying in says he isn't. Julian is now very powerful after drinking Lasher's blood. Lasher, drawing on his ancestral powers, summons a wolf to fight for him. The wolf attacks Ian, who manages to kill the creature, but not before the wolf killed him. Inside the Mayfair house, Lark is separated from Moira and locked in another room. Despite having no combat training, he manages to overpower and kill his captor. Outside, Lasher and Rowan work together to defeat Ian's sons, but the fight turns deadly when Amintha hurls an axe, embedding it into Lasher's chest. Rowan, in a rage, strikes her with lightning. Julian watches in approval. Rowan is fully embracing her power. As the battle rages on, Sip, Polina, and their Talamasca reinforcements arrive. They spot a magical force field around the Mayfair residence, which an agent easily penetrates. Julian tries to persuade Rowan to drink Lasher's blood, promising that with it, she could resurrect both Lasher and the Mayfair women he killed. But Rowan knows better. If Julian wants her to drink it, there must be a catch. She pretends to consider it, stalling long enough for Sip and Polina to escape with the Taltos children. However, Julian attacks them with lightning as they attempt to escape with the Taltos children. Sip manages to get through, but Polina is struck down by Julian's magic. Before Sip vanishes into the portal, he apologizes for leaving her behind. Once Julian disappears, Rowan makes her choice. She drinks the blood. As she does, flowers bloom rapidly around Lasher's corpse. She levitates, fully embracing her power. Later, Rowan, Lark, and Moira prepare to leave Scotland. Moira informs them that the Taltos children are safe with the Talamasca, but Sip knows Julianne will come for them. And Emelith has mysteriously vanished. Lark admits that he loves Rowan but doesn't trust her with all the power she now possesses. He doesn't want to be part of this anymore, and urges Rowan to walk away from it all too. But she can't simply move on and live happily ever after. Not with her dad trapped in the Victrola and Julianne still roaming the streets. Since they're breaking up, Rowan can't let him walk away with his memories. She uses Julianne's memory-erasing elixir on him. Before he forgets everything, Lark jokes that if he ever visits New Orleans, Rowan should introduce herself and flirt with him, for old time's sake. Back in New Orleans, Rowan and Moira return to the Mayfair house. Rowan frees the trapped spirits, a glowing light signaling their release. On the porch, she senses a presence. Julianne watches her from afar. They lock eyes. Rowan drank the blood. So where is Lasher? Did she not use it to revive him? And with that, Season 2 ends, leaving us with more questions than answers. See you in Season 3.